Hello.
Hey, looking for Billy Payne.
You found him.
Hey, Billy, Mitch Michaels from the River in Chicago. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Mitch. Thanks for calling, man.
Absolutely. You know, I don't expect you to remember. We met probably about 40 plus years ago. You and Paul Barrera came up to the Merchandise Mart. We were at WKQX, and we did an interview. And I did one with Lowell a couple of years before that. So, it's been a while,
Cool.
but been a fan for many, many moons. So
Sure sounds like it. Yeah, 40 years ago is a little past my. I'm good at 40 minutes, but.
They told you had a good time, and I think there's pictures. But it's like
Good. Well, I'll go with that. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you being around that long. It says a lot about your ability.
It's funny you should say that. I just celebrated my 50th anniversary of my first show in Chicago last month, actually in December. So I'm like, started when I was 3, of course, but
Yes.
as we all did,
Doesn't
right?
everyone? Exactly.
So I'm really curious. You gathered several of the original crew for this return to the stage and whatever else. You got Kenny Gradney, you got Sam Clayton playing with you.
Yeah.
I think
Fred Tackett's on board.
Fred Tackett. Well, he was moved in a little late. He was like mid '80s, I think, but he wasn't original.
He was, but Mitch, he was one of the very first people I met in L.A.
Is that right?
And and he contributed on Dixie Chicken. It was "Fool Yourself." He played some sort of guitar with a pencil on "Time Loves a Hero," and he got us our very first. I did a lot of sessions with Fred too, but during that time period in L.A. But he literally got Little Feat its very first paying gig for Jimmy Webb's birthday party, whom he worked with and for out in Encino, California. So that was Fred goes back a long, long way with us, and Lowell knew him years before I met him. So
wow. Okay. Well, I'm so anxious to see the show. But tell me about it. Now. How long have you guys been back together doing stuff?
Well, the truth of the matter is, when COVID hit, which was in March of 2020, we had just played a show in Jamaica, and I think it was in February, maybe January. We kind of shifted them around, but Scott Sherrard was on that gig with us down there. We had Gabe Ford playing drums. Paul had passed in October of the year before, 2019, and Sherrard was at the last 2 shows. In fact, the very day that Paul passed away, Sherrard was playing with us that night. So the other, like Tony Leone, came in kind of about midway in the 2020 year. I think it was that summer. But we didn't get together, to answer your question, we didn't get together until November of last year to rehearse and then go out on that little tour we did. And then we went to Florida and Jamaica. I mean, we've been recording stuff. We recorded a beautiful rendition of Lowell's Long Distance Love. That was the very first song I chose for us to record.
Compare a little bit for the old days of touring to what it's like today. And I realize the whole COVID thing and everything else has made it just crazy. But we're all doing the old folks boogie these days. Your mind makes a promise that your body can't fill. But how is it touring?
Well, touring is the way it's always been, which is, Richie used to joke that we get paid for travel. We would play for free if we had to.
I like that.
I did too. But so the travel's the same. I mean, you're right. We're older, but it's still. I don't feel any less wear or tear than I ever have. I mean, on some levels, at age, I'll be 73 in March, right? And at age 72, I can handle certain aspects of travel better than I could at 27, let's say. I don't. I mean, I'm just used to it by now. I don't know, but I don't seem to have those lags, jet lag, or anything else anymore.
Well, that's a good thing. When's your birthday in March?
March 12th, same as James Taylor's.
Okay, because mine's the 20th, so I got you by almost a year. I'll be 74, so,
Yeah, there you go. Well, the water's okay. It's at 73, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Jump in. It's great.
Age is age. But for me, to finish the question you asked, what's different for me is that now we use the in-ears for it was with the Doobie Brothers the last 6-7 years. I was using in-ears on that tour with them. And for singing, which I did very little of with those guys, but with Little Feat, and playing, it just makes it easier to hear what you're doing on stage.
Interesting.
And the better a musician can hear, the better the show is going to be.
Sure. Let me take you back to the beginning for a second. Just tell me about when Lowell left Zappa and wanted to put a band together in the beginning, and kind of what life was like with Lowell back in the early days.
Well, for me, I was told that he was. I went down to L.A. to meet Frank, but Frank was on a tour of Europe. They turned me on to a guy named Jeffrey Simmons, who was with a group called Eureka. And he was part of Zappa's satellite bands that he had at the time, of which one of them was Alice Cooper. And so I met with Jeffrey at the Tropicana Hotel, and he says, "You know what? I also play keyboards. I'm not sure this will work, but there's a guy named Lowell George that you should really hook up with." And so, a few weeks later, I hooked up with Lowell. He was... What was it? I walked up to his house. It was a really rustic house in Hollywood area. Doors open. This beautiful blonde girl was sitting there cross-legged listening to some RXIT. "Oh, you must be Bill. Lowell's expecting you. He'll be back in 4 hours." I go, "What does he do when he's not expecting you?" So I was like looking through his house because I'm not going anywhere, so I'm hanging out with her for a while. But he's got a sitar over in the right-hand corner of the house. I guess he was taking lessons with Ravi Shankar at one point. He's got a samurai sword on the back wall. It's hung up beautifully. And I'm like looking at his record collection. He's got the Smithsonian, Chain Gang collection. He's got "Hey, Lordy, join the band," that we put on Waiting for Columbus. His albums consisted of Owned by John Coltrane. He had a couple with Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf. A comedy record that Zappa had produced of Lenny Bruce's. On and on. It was just, I looked at his book collection, Howl by Ginsberg. There was some other poetry books there. And by the time he showed up 4 hours later, whatever it was, I kind of felt like I kind of knew him a little bit.
Interesting way to kind of get a perspective on somebody by looking around the house and whatever. Little Feat, always an interesting studio band, and you have done so much studio work, but it always struck me that you guys were the happiest live on stage, and I think Waiting for Columbus kind of gives that aura, that's such a magical trip. Tell me if I'm wrong or right or what.
No, you are absolutely right with regard to Little Feat. I think we had a problem with the red light being on. Sometimes you overthink things. Maybe sometimes you don't think about them enough, and so there we were. But truly live, we were able to open up. There's no second takes and third takes. You just go for it, and you have an audience. So that's you hit the nail on the head.
Well, are you doing more singing now? You said you didn't do much with the Doobies, but with Little Feat, are you doing a substantial amount of it, or what? I'm
doing a lot more. Yeah, Scott Sherrard's a wonderful singer. Tony Leone, whom I didn't know could sing, sings beautifully too. So we've got and Fred sings. So, but I sing a lot of stuff. I'm doing Sailing Shoes. Never used to sing that. Fat Man in the Bathtub. Moved it to the key of C.
How about Time Loves a Hero? You got to be singing that, right?
Oh yeah. So I sing the stuff I used to sing, Red Stream Liner, etc. But yeah, I moved into a few areas where people, when they finally heard me, they go, "Well, why weren't you singing before?" I
Nobody
said,
asked
well,
me.
I said, look, what am I supposed to do? Knock somebody off the microphone? It's I'm a team player, but Paul was ill and he couldn't make that last tour, and I didn't want to hand it over to Larry Teresa, who joined us on the first part of that tour in October of 2019. So I said, I'm going to sing these songs, which included Willin', which most of those songs I'd never sung in my life, but I knew how to sing them. And I thought, well, I'll get to the first gig, and if I don't hit it, then I'll divvy them up with other people. But I had a pretty good idea where to take things, and I had the confidence to do it mainly. But I think my voice fit in pretty good. It's with Little Feat, the magic with Little Feat is and continues to be a reverence for the music that we play. We've got great songs, and they're very circuitous when musicians try and play them, and they do play them. But a lot of people go, I didn't realize it was, and I go, that hard to play, right? And they go, yeah. I said, because it sounds so easy. I mean, Oh Atlanta sounds like falling off a log.
Yeah.
Until you try and play it. And there's just these subtleties in the way that the boom, 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 those bass lines that walk up and back down, and little subtleties in the chord changes. There's 2 beats instead of 4, that kind of stuff. And you go, they all require looking at and knowing what they do, and then being able to apply what you know as a musician to the song. And Grateful Dead music, same way. I thought when I sang it with Phil Lesh, I haven't played with Steely Dan, but I think their music's very challenging too. So
no question about it. Let me ask you this: you've done so much session work too. You've worked with so many different people and whatever else. But the one that I was kind of surprised at was I saw you did some work with Pink Floyd. What did you do with them?
It's funny you should ask that one, because I looked at purportedly what I had played on, and it looked like I'd played on more than a couple of albums, or at least a couple of albums. And I thought, God, I don't remember doing it. The one I remembered playing on was Bob Ezrin was their producer, and David Gilmour was there. Jeff Picard set it up. It was at 10 in the morning, and I went in there, and Ezrin goes, I'm playing B3, I want you to gliss up to the high C and hold it there for 4 beats. And I want you to come down and play C, E, G. And he told me what to play the entire song. And I went, okay. I figured, well, Gilmore's there. He's not saying, let the guy play. And Jeffrey didn't weigh in either. I said, well, I'll be the conduit for Bob Ezrin and his keyboard aspirations, I guess. So I did it. My son, when he heard it, he goes, that's probably the worst reviewed album they've ever made. I go, gee, I wonder why.
That's great. Put that on your resume, right? No problem.
but I did see I played on some other stuff, and then I went, well, gosh, those are good albums, and so cool. But mainly I remember what I play on. It's not bad. I guess I had a blind spot there. Yeah. I love Pink Floyd, so that was cool.
Yeah, that happens. All right, if you could speak to some people who are either coming to the show or are thinking about coming to the show, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that if you love Little Feat in your heart, and maybe you haven't seen us in a while, I think this is a great opportunity for you to dive back into the water with us. We are at a really, really good place in our band on so many levels, but I think that the music is well represented. We're really aware of our legacy. And I got to say, too, that the way this band was set up with Lowell in the beginning, and myself, was that it would be, if we needed horns, we'll bring in horns. And we're going to have horns, by the way. Got 3 great guys playing with us from Woodstock area in New York. But it's about the songs. It's about where we take things. So you're going to be hearing some great musicianship, as you've always heard. And what I gauge, Mitch, when I'm watching an audience, and this will apply to anybody I'm talking to, is they come into these gigs with a sense of hope. Man, I hope it sounds good. I hope these guys really can hit the bar. And I just watch them, the smiles which are there, but they get broader and broader. Their body language relaxes, and they get up, they start to dance, and you go, it's a home run. And it's not that it's that predictable, but I could probably predict that would happen, because it's doing the same thing to me.
The music involvement, and you and I can both relate to it in the sense of you playing it, obviously, and me still presenting it on the radio, keeps us young. At least it does for me. I tell people, don't stop rocking, man, because it keeps you young. And I really believe that very, very firmly.
I think I know you're right, in fact, and there's that aspect. And look at Tony Leone, I think he's 52. So he's 20 years younger than I am, I guess. And Gerard is, 45 maybe? So we got some new blood in the band. Sam Clayton has got a new tech that he lost 20 years of getting his new technician to help him out on stage. I mean, he's playing and singing great, Tackett, etc. Kenny Grady, man, I love him. So like I said, Mitch, we're in a really good place with the band. I think that, I watched West Side Story last night. I'll share this with you.
The new one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it like a week ago. It was great.
I loved it, man. And there was a time when I as a kid, when I saw the original West Side Story, or at least the movie, it was out as a play before that, but I went out and bought the soundtrack to it. And so when T-Bone Burnett was involved in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, right. Okay.
I called it T-Bone, and I don't even know him that well, but I called him up somehow. I said, the only record I ever went out and bought for a soundtrack was West Side Story, and I'm going to buy, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That soundtrack. But my long-winded point here is that we've got in our minds where West Side Story was when we saw it the first time, if we saw it at all. And so we're always measuring things, as people do. And I think when people keep an open mind to stuff, life becomes a lot more interesting,
I totally agree with that. Absolutely.
People have their opinions, fine. I get that. But I'm a pretty hard nut to crack when it comes to being as cynical as anybody out there on the planet, was what I hear and want to hear. And I've found myself just looking and laughing. So that's what I'm inviting people to see, is just a rebirth of something that never went away. It's always about good music. I still play Beethoven, Bach, and Brahms, and maybe not as well as I do Little Feat, but I still play those things, and they resonate with me. And I listen to a lot of different versions of those kind of songs. And so it's, I think that's, for me, where music falls and where art falls. Is we kind of do what we do as jazz musicians or as classical musicians. You have a piece, and maybe you recorded it 20 years ago, and then you recorded it 10 years ago.
Always room for a little movement, a little improv, a little something different that you might have picked up on in that 10-year period.
I think so too. And lastly, there's a point where somebody said, "Well, how do you keep Dixie Chicken sounding so fresh? You've only played it for 50 plus years." And I said, "Well, the thought just occurred to me." I said, how do you keep Happy Birthday fresh? when you're
cake and candles. Are you kidding? Come on.
Cake and candles and a heartfelt, hey, happy birthday to you. That's where it's at. You either have it in your heart and it resides there, or you're you're out there pumping gas.
Fun. But March 10th,
I always want to come to Chicago.
I'm definitely going to be there and looking forward to it with my sailing shoes on and everything else. So it's like,
okay.
But hey, thanks for your time. Safe travels.
Thanks for yours.
And we will see you on the 10th of March at the Chicago Theater.
Sounds great, Mitch. And thanks for your time as well. Really appreciate the conversation, man.
Billy Payne, a real treat. Thank you so much.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.